Welcome, everyone. I'm Rob Sahutsky.
I'm Sergey Feldman.
And I'm Zach Miles. You're listening to Babble of the Beltway.
Welcome back, everyone, to week 13 of Babble of the Beltway. Sergi, how was your weekend?
I don't know what my life is anymore. I'm in a constant state of unpacking. I just moved into my new house last Sunday, so I'm just here learning the joys of home ownership. We got an amazing deal on a Facebook Marketplace coffee table from West Elm. The thing is normally like $500 or like $600, and we got it for like $300. Except now it doesn't go with our couch. So we need to replace our couch. And then if we replace our couch, we're probably going to replace our rug because then the rug is, went with the couch. It's not going to go with the new couch. So owning a home is just spending money all the time, nonstop. So that's what I'm doing. I am never going to retire. Zach, how was your weekend?
Not that stressful. It was my brother's birthday, so it was cool. We got to see some family and stuff. It was a nice time. I went to Clarksburg and went to a Starbucks and sat outside in the cold. So it was cool though, honestly. It was a nice time. Also his team's the Eagles. I don't hate the Eagles as much as I do the rest of the NFC East. So I was like kind of happy for him. So they got a dub, and then obviously Washington got a dub. So overall, pretty decent weekend. What about you, Rob?
I got a lot of rest and recovery this weekend, kind of charged back up.
How you feeling?
That Christmas shopping. I'm feeling great now. I'm feeling
Good.
I feel really, really good. Went to Old Ellicott City for their annual Midnight Madness Festival. That was a lot of fun. So a lot of cool stuff this weekend. Before we get started, we do have a couple administrative items. So first off, thank you to our wonderful research team, which consists of 5 red-tailed monkeys that we borrowed from a local animal shelter, a Pro Football Focus account, and an old TI-82 calculator. Our team was able to successfully locate Sri Lanka on the map. So now our entire team knows that the number 1 country in the world is slightly south, slightly east of India. So thank you again to our entire Babble crew from the wonderful country of Sri Lanka. Also, we have a fact check brought to you by the fruit bananas. So last week, we claimed that the goat's full name was Thomas Edward Brady. This is actually untrue. The goat's full name is actually Thomas Edward Patrick Brady Jr. This is a really embarrassing mistake for us. It's pretty egregious that we would, as a football podcast, humiliate ourselves like that on air. But you know what? It is what it is. Brought to you by Bananas. Bananas.
Look, I'm sorry. I didn't think that someone named Thomas Edward Patrick Brady would be like, you know what? We need a second one. Let's just throw the junior in there, right? There's not enough Thomas Edward Patrick Bradys in the world.
Apparently there weren't enough.
I was wrong.
Brought to you by Bananas. Let's get started.
Weekend recap.
3, 2, 1.
For week 13, we are going to highlight what we believe are the 3 best games of this week. Up first, we have the LA Chargers at Cincinnati. The LA Chargers won 41-22 despite being the underdogs. This is a fun little story time. Now, we've talked on this podcast in the past about how you can experience success when playing against the Chargers. They give up the 7th fewest passing attempts per game, but the 2nd most rushing yards per game. Only 3 teams have tried to pass 40 times or more against the Chargers. That's the Chiefs, the Steelers, and the Bengals, and all 3 of those teams lost. The 5 teams who did beat the Chargers this year: Dallas, almost 200 rushing yards, the Ravens, almost 200 rushing yards, the Patriots and Broncos, almost 150 rushing yards each, and the Vikings, over 100 rushing yards. So make no mistake, the Chargers are a really good team, but they're giving up 4.6 yards per carry on the season. That's the 5th worst in the NFL. You don't expect a playoff-bound team with a winning record to have a stat like that. And if you aren't attacking that weakness, you're going to be in some trouble. This is a team that can really run up the score. They've had 3 games this year where they have gone above the 40-point mark. So knowing this, how did the Bengals end up passing 40 times and running the ball only 25 times? This was a classic case of game script and everything going wrong early on in the game and dooming the outcome from there on out. The Bengals had a series of really bad breaks. The Chargers open with a kickoff that takes them to midfield. They have a huge chunk play to Williams that gets them to the goal line. And then they score on a critical 4th and goal toss to Keenan Allen. So we're 3.5 minutes into the game, and it's already 6-0 because, of course, the extra point got missed, because why not? Soon after, good old Dustin Hopkins. Soon after, Burrow gets strip sacked. This turns into a field goal. 9-0. Next drive, Burrow throws a sideline strike to Chase. Is this going to be a touchdown? No. Chase is going to bobble the ball so badly that it is going to fly backwards into the cornerback's hands. There's an interception. That drive turns into another Keenan Allen touchdown. 2 Bengals punts later, the Chargers score another touchdown and a 2-point conversion on a trick play where Justin Herbert catches a pass. We are barely into the second quarter at this point, and it is 24-0. That game plan of running the ball, that's gone. That is long gone at this point. You are 3.5 scores down, and your recipe to win the game is a big running performance. Now, the interesting part about this is that the Bengals started to make a game out of this. Before halftime, the Bengals got it back to 24-13. And in the third quarter, the Bengals actually got it to 22-24. They have a 2-point conversion where they can tie up the game for the first time since 3.5 minutes in the game when the Chargers scored their first touchdown. Joe Mixon gets completely stuffed, and the game stays at 24-22. Now, I think we've all seen these games in the past. A team jumps out, it catches another team off guard, you get this big early lead, but the better team starts clawing its way back into the game, and next thing you know, it's a close game again. It's a 1-score game, or only two points, right? Think the Falcons-Patriots Super Bowl. Falcons get a big lead, Patriots come back, win the game. The Chiefs-Texans playoff game, if you remember, where the Texans are up 24-0, and the Chiefs ended up winning that game with like 50-some points, beating them by 30 points, right? That was what immediately came to my mind here. This game did not play out like that at all. Because after the Bengals got back in the game, they would not do a thing ever again. Not a single thing. Joe Mixon would fumble the ball, and it gets ran all the way back for a touchdown. The Chargers sack City kicks it back up. The Chargers ended this game with 6 total sacks on Burrow, and the Chargers offense kicks it right back into gear. And this game ends up being a blowout. After being a blowout and then being a close game, it then resumes being a blowout. I don't think I have ever seen a game play out like this. So to break it down, the Chargers open this game by scoring 24 unanswered points. The Bengals then respond by scoring 22 unanswered points. The Chargers then score 17 unanswered points. Somehow this game was in 3 different segments of one team doing absolutely nothing while the other team is dominating, and it just kept switching. Where only the Chargers could score points, then only the Bengals could score points, then only the Chargers could score points. I don't remember a game that I've ever watched where something like this happened. a fun little statistical thing. You know, I love looking at statistics that I think are funny and that tell an interesting narrative. Joe Mixon ran the ball 19 times. On these 19 attempts, the Bengals got 54 yards and a touchdown. On those same attempts, the Chargers defense got 63 yards and a touchdown. So in a run-friendly matchup, when you hand the ball off to your lead back, your net gain is -9 yards. That's not going to win you the game. You can't give the defense more yards on a fumble recovery for a touchdown than your star running back gets in the entire game. That is not a recipe for success in the NFL. And yet again, we see when a team jumps out early and takes a big lead, they force the other team to play in a desperate fashion, make a lot of uncharacteristic mistakes, and dig themselves into a hole. The Bengals almost rallied, but ultimately, they completely crumbled under the pressure. And a little fun fact to close this one out, the Chargers against the AFC North, they put up 40-plus points on every AFC North team except for the Baltimore Ravens, who somehow held them to 6 points. How did this happen? I have no idea. I still can't explain to you how the Ravens shut down that Chargers offense, but the Chargers dominated all three other teams.
I mean, I can. I was at the Ravens-Chargers game, so obviously.
Right.
Oh,
obviously,
of
I shut down
course.
Justin Herbert. I am the lockdown defense, Rob.
It was the 12th man, Sergey Feldman.
I am alone, the 12th man. Don't let me get any bigger of a head than I already
the
have.
sole factor that stopped the Chargers from sweeping the AFC North. All right, Sergey, tell us about the San Francisco-Seattle Seahawks game.
All right. Thanks, Rob. All right. So San Francisco at Seattle. Seattle ended up taking it 30-23. Now, I am 2-4-2 now. This is 2 weeks in a row where I have called the upset. San Francisco was favored in this game. I called Seattle, and the week before, I called Raiders over Cowboys. Ignore all of my other picks. I am the most accurate amateur football analyst on all of your audio network platforms.
It's true.
So,
Sergey has only made 2 predictions this entire season.
Exactly. If you just look apart from everything else, I am 100%. I wish statistics worked like that. This was a really, really fun game to watch. It really had everything. I mean, there was some good offensive play. There was just a lot of turnovers. There was the ball went back and forth on special teams, on offense, on defense. It was a fun time to watch. San Francisco should have won this game. I think San Francisco outplayed Seattle on all fronts. I think San Francisco is the better team. Seattle really just got lucky, and sometimes luck is really all you need to win a football game. On Seattle's side, I still don't think that Russell Wilson is back. He still seems to be having a hard time coming back. He was getting the ball out pretty quickly, but he's really, that was, I think, more a function of him playing to the limitations of what he can do on the field right now. He went 30 for 37. He actually had an 81% completion percentage for only 231 yards. He was averaging like 6 yards an attempt, which is really, really low for Russell Wilson, considering he's supposed to be one of the premier deep ball passers in the NFL. On top of that, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick, 2 big time throws, and 1 turnover worthy play. On a sidebar, we throw out these stats a lot of the time, big time throws, turnover worthy plays. Just to give you an idea of kind of what that is, in the simplest terms, a big time throw is a throw on the highest end of both like difficulty and value. So if you happen to watch this game, that beautiful fade that Russell Wilson threw, 25 yards into the end zone to Tyler Lockett, which just dropped in a breadbasket over a defender, that's a big time throw. That's an incredibly difficult pass to make. It's downfield. It's a game-changing pass. On the flip side, a turnover-worthy play is not necessarily going to be an interception. So if a quarterback throws a pick, it's going to be a turnover-worthy play. However, if a quarterback throws a pick and it bounces off the defensive back's hands, that's also going to be a turnover-worthy play. On the flip side, if a quarterback throws the ball, it bounces off his receiver's hands, and the DB picks it off, that's not a turnover-worthy play. So a turnover-worthy play is more of a measurement of how often the quarterback is putting the ball in harm's way. So back to the game, Russell Wilson was actually the San Francisco defensive line was after him all game. They pressured him 37% of his snaps, and his average time to throw was like 2.42 seconds, which is pretty much on the lower end. He had some off passes. His receivers were more or less forgettable. Really, it makes sense. If your quarterback's only throwing for 231 yards, your number 1 and 2 guys are going to have so much to feast off on the receiving side. Gerald Everett, my goodness. Gerald Everett had 3 turnovers that he caused just on his own. He had 2 fumbles, 1 fumble in early on in the game in the first quarter, 1 fumble as a goal line carry towards the end of the game. And Russell Wilson had him wide open in the third quarter on a crossing route. And he tried to triple catch the ball. Not once, not twice, 3 times. Then decided to just hand it off casually to a 49ers defender for an interception all the goal line. Gerald Everett, causing us nightmares. I'm sorry, everyone. I know we recommended him in fantasy, and he gave you a whopping negative 1.6 points.
3 or 4 weeks in a row we've recommended.
And just he might be on our recommendations later on, and we'll explain why. The difference in this game, it's a little known guy. It's a Seattle third string running back. It's a guy named Travis Homer. Travis Homer really made all the difference in this game. For one, early on, he had a 73-yard direct snap on a fake punt for a touchdown. And what's crazy to me is, I feel like Pete Carroll and Seattle get these more often than not. There are so many times where I've seen Seattle run some kind of a fake punt. The NFC Championship game against it was a fake field goal, but fake special teams play in Seattle just seemed to be successful. They had I was mentioning the NFC Championship game a few years ago against Green Bay, where their punter threw a touchdown to a freaking offensive lineman. It's crazy when you see that kind of stuff. And that was really also Travis Homer in that case was the entire Seattle rushing attack. If you take out that 75-yard run, they averaged barely over 3 a carry. The legendary Adrian Peterson averaged 1.5 yards a carry this game. But what's really cool is that he did get a touchdown, which actually tied Jim Brown's touchdown record. So cool on Adrian Peterson. He's a little bit washed at this point. I don't know why.
Not
Seattle
a little bit, bro. He's a lot of bit.
He's a lot of bit washed. And then the Seattle defense. We talked about this a little bit last week. It was the number 3 most effective rushing attack against the number 3 most effective rushing defense. That was the matchup here, and something had to give. Seattle actually played incredibly well against San Francisco rushing defense. I think they held them to under 4 yards a rush, which is really crazy. I don't know if a lot of people have been able to do that against San Francisco this year. Seattle's defense actually managed to capitalize on 3 turnovers. They had 2 picks and then 1 fumble. And you know who recovered that fumble? A little man named Travis Homer. So like I said, Travis Homer, the difference in this game. Ryan Neal was abused by George Kittle, their Seattle safety, the entire game. He let up 5 catches on 6 targets for 105 yards and a touchdown. And the defense also missed 10 tackles as well. They stepped up, though, when it mattered. In a classic Seattle-San Francisco ending of a game with a goal line stand with no time left, they managed to get a tip pass by Carlos Dunlap and seal the game. So it was an up and down game for Seattle. But they just football is a game of capitalizing on the big moments, and they managed to get those big moments. It doesn't matter that San Francisco outplayed them in every facet of the game. They managed to get a couple key plays and come out on top. On the flip side with San Francisco, there is an argument to be made. Trent Williams should be the offensive player of the year. What he is doing right now is absolutely insane. Not only is he the highest graded offensive player in Pro Football Focus history, if you just look at what he's doing, he's allowed 14 pressures. 14 pressures would consist of 7 hurries, 6 quarterback hits, and 1 sack on 368 pass blocking snaps. That means that he is winning his pass blocking assignments 97% of the time. That is absolutely mind-boggling, especially against the kind of athletes that you're going against in today's NFL. And I know this hurts Zach.
And that's a vision.
It's no, man, but honestly, yeah. I'm happy for him. Not to take away from your segment here. I'm happy for him because I love Trent Williams. You know what I mean? I didn't want us to trade him. And obviously, he had cancer. He had literal cancerous,
oh my God, you forget
tumor
about that.
in his brain. Yeah. So I don't blame him for wanting to leave Washington. He was always amazing in Washington, and he stepped up his game with Kyle Shanahan after he started working with him again. I'm happy for TW, man. Pay him as much money as he wants. Go ahead, back to you.
And he's earning as much money as he wants. The highest paid left tackle in the league, and he is worth every single penny that San Francisco is paying him. Again, on the San Francisco side, They should have won this game. They got unlucky in a few plays. Jimmy Garoppolo actually took okay care of the ball. Unfortunately, he had 2 turnover-worthy plays, and defense capitalized on both of them. But they were really bad turnovers. I mean, one of them was just in the first quarter, he did not see Bobby Wagner. Bobby Wagner gets an easy interception, and later in the game, Jimmy Garoppolo overthrows George Kittle. Granted, it was a really good pass because he threw it over the 2 linebackers covering Kittle. He just happened to overthrow him into the hands of the safety. Quandre Diggs managed to get a pick. So Jimmy Garoppolo goes 20 completions for 30 attempts, 299 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks, 1 big-time throw. Those 2 turnover plays we just talked about. Their offensive line played great. He was only really pressured on 26% of his dropbacks. Like I said, the picks are pretty bad, but this is another example of what we talked about kind of earlier in the year where Jimmy Garoppolo threw the ball 30 times this game, and as a result, he got picked off twice. When you look at the San Francisco 49ers wins throughout the year, Jimmy Garoppolo throws the ball 20 times. They run the ball 30 to 40 times. They come out with a win. If Garoppolo is playing ball control offense, the 49ers have a really good chance. But if the game is in Jimmy Garoppolo's hands, that's when it slips away, which is, on the flip side of that, the usually really potent San Francisco rushing attack was kind of inept. They tried everything they normally do. They ran their sweeps, they ran their outside zones, and it really didn't amount to much. I think they went 25. I think they only averaged 2.8 yards a carry. They had 25 attempts, 71 yards. They managed to get 1 touchdown, only 4 missed tackles. Out of those 2.8 yards, they were averaging 2.44 yards after contact, which means the Seattle defense are just penetrating and hitting them at the line every single time. And that's how you stop San Francisco. You stop the running game. You make Jimmy Garoppolo have to pass the ball and see what happens. Unfortunately, for Seattle, George Kittle was in this game. George Kittle's healthy, and George Kittle is really making a case for being the best tight end in the NFL right now. I really think that with Travis Kelce getting older and declining, that's got to go to Kittle. He had 6.4. Just his stat line. He had 12 targets, 9 receptions, 181 yards, and 2 touchdowns. 109 of those yards came after the catch. So George Kittle is just Derrick Henry, but playing tight end. He's out there bulldozing people, stiff-arming them, outrunning linebackers and corners. He was 60% of his team's offensive, just passing production, which is crazy from a tight end position. You just don't see that. But you're talking about a guy who's a unique athlete who somehow fell to the 5th round in the draft, which is mind-boggling to me. And the last little tidbit about me gushing about George Kittle, who is probably my favorite non-Ravens player in the NFL. He had 6.46 yards per route run in this game. For reference, elite receivers like Debo, Cooper Kupp, Devontae Adams, Justin Jefferson average 3 yards per route run on a good day. So yeah, George Kittle was absolutely dominant. San Francisco rushing attack wasn't too great. The defense played well. They got a lot of pressure, 4 sacks. They got 3 turnovers. They just ended up getting unlucky on a few plays. Russell Wilson ended up getting the better of them. They forced him to throw the ball short most of the time, managed to get a couple balls over the defense, a couple of unlucky turnovers. And at the end of the day, what did it come down to? It came down to a 75-yard touchdown on a special teams play, and it came down to a goal line stand. This was a super, super entertaining game. I was really happy that I got to watch it. I'm really happy that I got to see, the NFC West juggernauts duel it out, even though I don't know if the Rams can be called the juggernauts anymore, but we'll get to them later. But Seattle's starting to put it together. I don't think they're going to be able to make a run at this point because they're 4-8, but San Francisco, I think despite the fact that they lost, they are still a really dangerous team. I think this was an off game for them. They went off their game script. I see them coming back to their game script. I see them running the ball, grounding and pounding, controlling the offense. And what this team is right now, I'm more interested in what the 49ers are going to become in the next couple of years, because Jimmy Garoppolo limits this offense a lot. Again, they have to play ball control offense with Jimmy Garoppolo in there. What happens when Trey Lance comes in, and what happens if Trey Lance can be the quarterback that we all think that he can be? This could be a really, really interesting team to watch in the next couple of years.
Yeah. And when Deebo Samuel gets healthy, this team will put the league on notice.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's right. Deebo Samuel wasn't even in this game. And, they still I don't think they really missed a beat.
All right.
Zach, I hear that you have Denver at Kansas City. What have you got for us?
Yeah, man. So this is our last spotlighted game of the week. After this, we'll have some shorter summaries for you guys. So just keep hanging in there with us. I know we like to talk a lot. All jokes aside, the Broncos Kansas City game. What did I say? Broncos? I meant Broncos. The Broncos Chiefs game last night was kind of a snooze fest.
The Broncos chefs.
The Broncos chefs. Yes, the Broncos chefs. Perfect. Nah, man, it was kind of a snooze fest. Honestly, it was not a very entertaining game to watch in a lot of portions of it. But I think that's because both of the offenses suck. Other than one guy, seriously,
Wait,
both of the offenses were bad.
The Kansas City Chiefs offense sucks.
Yeah.
They put up 15 points.
15 points.
Mhm.
Yeah, exactly. I hope you guys can read sarcasm because it's on Robbie's face, but it's not translating in his voice right now, unless I don't know how to read sarcasm, which is very possible because I'm very gullible. All right, so Javonte Williams was a monster. The dude was the best. The secret for the Broncos to even have any sort of success on offense is hand the ball off or pass to Javonte Williams. Don't put him in pass protection because he's not great at that. Go ahead, Serge. What were you going to say?
He's a quicker Nick Chubb. He's just a quicker, more explosive Nick Chubb, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts. So minimize anything that Teddy Bridgewater has to do other than give the ball to Javonte Williams. And I remember when I was telling a couple buddies, I had chosen this game ahead of time that I was going to cover it. So, podcast listener every week, Jeff Maddox, my guy, Mr. Jeff, he told me, don't be gentle. So I won't be. All right, Jeff, I'm sorry. So the Broncos did one thing, like I said, that was really good, and that was running the football. Over 80% of Javonte Williams' rushing yards came after contact. He ran for like 106 yards, 104 yards, whatever it may be, and 83 of those came after contact. That means that he was getting hit at the line of scrimmage or at some part of the field, of course, and still found a way to continue to push through everything. It was super impressive to see him because this was his first start. And the only reason he was playing was because Melvin Gordon hurt his hip. I wouldn't be shocked to see Melvin Gordon have to take an extended absence because of this hip injury to make sure he's really 100% to see just what it is that the Broncos have with this kid. He averaged 6.63 yards per touch, which is pretty robust when it comes to running backs. He factored as a runner and a receiver, like I was saying before, and he could be truly a stud. And honestly, it wasn't just him. Mike Boone came in at the end of the game and was really, although it was garbage time, was putting up good numbers too. At one point, he was averaging 11 yards a carry. And,
I'm a big Mike Boone guy.
Dude,
big Mike Boone guy over here.
Love Mike Boone, man. He's an analytics person's dream other than his draft capital. But yeah, man, no, it was really impressive to see. They ended up with 150 yards rushing, and the offense in general just looked good when they were doing that. Their offensive line, especially number 77, once again, my buddy Jeff told me, watch out for this D3 prospect, number 77. His nickname is Large Man Moving Large Men. And he did that, man. In the run game, he did that. In the pass game, he was the worst offensive lineman on the field. But in the run game, that man was moving 1 to 3 people at a time. He was vicious. He was violent. He was fun football to watch. And I loved it. But the rest of the game for the Broncos was pretty bad. The receivers couldn't do anything. Jerry Jeudy, I don't know if he has a true issue with drops that he never had in college or what it is that's going on, but he just, for some reason, he drops 1 to 2 passes every single week. He ended up being their leading receiver, but it was still questionable for the fact that, yeah, it was windy. Yeah, Teddy Bridgewater's the quarterback, but there are so many different things that they could have done to be more efficient passing the ball other than benching Teddy. They could have found a way. I feel like the offensive play calling is very, very bland for Denver. I want to see them win. I want to see them run 35 times a game. I don't think that's realistically going to happen, but I don't want to watch them pass the football. I not at all, like not even a little bit, Garrett Bowles led the league in penalties last year and the year before. I'm pretty sure him and Tyron Smith, they just trade off that 1 and 2 spot. And this year, once again, yesterday had a bad penalty at the wrong time for this team. The Broncos were actually putting up a little bit of a fight right up until they had a 4th down conversion that they missed because of number 77, Quinn Miners, completely whiffed on a block. And that's going to happen. He was a rookie pick. He was a D3 guy transitioning to the NFL. And once again, he just moves large men. That's what he does. That's his job. He's fun, but it's like watching the Broncos is like watching, oh man, I'm trying to come up with an analogy, but none of them are appropriate for this podcast. So I'm just going to keep moving forward.
Keep it PG, Zach. Keep it PG.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing, man. That's probably my biggest struggle sometimes on this podcast is like, how can I say this without getting us in trouble and or getting shame thrown at my face?
Yeah, keep all inappropriate comments to the awards. That's where it goes.
That's where they go. Yeah,
Is it
absolutely.
Drew Lock time?
No, Drew Lock sucks. Drew Lock's worse than
Okay.
Teddy Bridgewater. Teddy Bridgewater had one of the worst games of any quarterback in the NFL via PFF's ratings yesterday, but he's still awful because you know who has the worst for minimum pass attempts of like 8 or something? Drew Lock. For when
but he
relieves
raps on the
Teddy Bridgewater.
sideline, you know?
He's
He's
a
in
young
it.
Jeezy. That man's living 20 years in the past, all right? I love Jeezy.
Williams
The
direct
recession-
snap every play.
Every single play. That's the only solution. Run the Wildcat. Bring back Ronnie Brown's favorite play from 2008. All right, so the Broncos just didn't do well. They didn't take advantage of the opportunities that they had. They had, like I said, missed blocks, penalties. They allowed Chris Jones to absolutely abuse them, man. Like just vandalized their team with his macho, you know what I mean? I don't know if you guys can understand what that means, but that means a lot. The dude's, Rob's shaking his head, no. I'm telling you guys, I'm struggling today to come up with the right words because there's so many things I could say. I'm hanging out with my dad too much. My dad's pretty inappropriate. All right, so let's get back at it. Teddy Bridgewater needs to go, needs to be benched, but not for Drew Lock, for someone else. Also, side note, one other good player for Denver that I really like a lot is Pat Surtain II.
Mm-hmm.
He's a monster. He only allowed 1 catch for 14 yards yesterday. He got a pick. It wasn't a bad throw by Mahomes. It was a drop by Tyreek Hill, but it was still something where it was just like, wow, he came down with that. That's awesome. This kid's going to be super special. He's already got 4 picks in the NFL, has one of the lowest QBRs thrown in his direction. The guy's going to be awesome. I hope he has a long, healthy, good career because I think that the sky's the limit for him. He could be like the next Darrelle Revis shutdown cornerback that comes into the league and truly runs things kind of like Tre'Davious White was doing before his ACL tear. Now, let's get to the Chiefs. If you would have told me 6 weeks ago that the Chiefs' defense is leading them to victories and their offense was what was holding them back, I wouldn't have believed you. But I feel like I wouldn't have believed you if you told me that the top 5 running backs in ADP in fantasy football all would have been out for the season or for a long period of time. It would have happened either because none of it makes sense to me. But this year has proven that it's all luck. Nothing matters. This is a simulation and the simulation's broken. So the Chiefs are bad on offense, like I said before, but their defense is awesome. And a lot of that coincides with Chris Jones coming back from that calf strain and playing inside. He's no longer playing outside nearly as much as he was. And I kind of said this a few weeks ago, too. It was like the week before he came back, I was like, honestly, I think once Chris Jones comes back, Kansas City is going to be something that you don't want to play with. You don't want to have to deal with the reckoning of potential Kansas City defense. And I like that is happening, but I don't like what I'm seeing on the other side of the football. So obviously we can talk as much as we want about how Clyde Edwards-Helaire was a waste of a first-round draft pick. It's just the truth. It's a fact. It's time to cut bait with him, y'all. Just realize that he is not worth it. They messed up. They were going for a guy who was quote-unquote scheme-specific, but really he just played with one of the best quarterback prospects of all time in an offense that had 2 of the best wide receiver prospects of all time and one of the best offensive lines of all time when it came to college football. He was the sole byproduct of that didn't deserve what he got.
Gerald Williams is a more effective running back.
He is. He's a more effective running back in every facet of the game as a receiver, as a runner, and as a blocker. It's crazy, although CEH has gotten better at blocking. Anyways, Chris Jones is awesome. Like I said, he's really, really fun to watch, but Mahomes is not. Mahomes, there's something wrong with Mahomes right now. I don't think he's hurt. This is the Mahomes that caused him to become the 10th overall pick. This is what he was doing in college. He was throwing off base, and he had done that in the pros for so long, and it wasn't a problem because he was finding ways to win games. But I remember during their Super Bowl winning season, they looked awesome the whole year. Mahomes hurt his knee, came back, started looking not great, but he still found a way to win games. And in the playoffs, they were the only team in NFL history to trail in the playoffs every single game and then come back and win a Super Bowl. And I remember in all those games, I was like, yo, there's something wrong with Pat Mahomes. But then there wasn't, because he would win. Now he's just not doing it. He's throwing, what's his face? Chris Collinsworth, my least favorite announcer other than Troy Aikman and Joe Buck. Because truly, Chris Collinsworth, the only good thing about him is that he owns PFF. That's it. That's the only redeeming factor about Chris Collinsworth, because he sucks. So anyways, I don't like a lot of people, guys. I think you guys are realizing that over this. I don't like a lot of like famous football figureheads. It's the truth. It's
Listen,
the truth, man.
now here's a guy.
Yeah, no, and that's him, dude. He's like, I've been liking this guy since forever. And it was just like, Chris Collinsworth, you've never ever said anything good about that guy until today. So you shut your face. You shut your face right now. All right. Anyways, there were issues with Mahomes coming out of college where he would play too much hero ball. He would try too hard, play off balance, and do all these different things like throw sidearmed and throw it at 3/4 releases where it didn't make sense. And he's doing those same things now. Now, I wouldn't go back to that draft and take Mitch Trubisky over Mahomes. Don't get me wrong. Not at all. I wouldn't take any of those quarterbacks over Mahomes. I would take Mahomes #1 overall every single time.
That's blasphemy. Mitch Trubisky was just held back by Matt Nagy.
I can agree with that, but not enough for Mahomes, man. I'm noticing, and we were talking about this before we started, recording this segment. I've noticed that this year, a lot of quarterbacks who had really progressed are regressing quite a lot. Lamar, you guys will talk about that later with him. Josh Allen, he's a guy who the expectations were super high. And then Patrick Mahomes. He's been a monster for 3 years, and then this year he just doesn't look right. Even Russell Wilson, but Russell Wilson had a reason. He had that finger injury. So at the end of the day, I think the Chiefs are here to stay. I think the Chiefs, as long as their defense plays like this, if their offense is continuing to play like this, have a chance to win any football game, and that's the truth. Because their type of defensive football coincides with success in December, January, and February. And that's the truth. They are a good defensive team now. They weren't 6 weeks ago. But as long as Chris Jones stays healthy, that defensive line keeps getting penetration, and guys like Frank Clark continue to fire off the edge, they're going to be fine.
So then a question on this quarterback play that you brought up here. I mean, the NFL is an ever-changing kind of we saw as, for example, on defense, linebackers got smaller and more agile to cover a lot of these more athletic tight ends. Power running backs are back because what? They can run over guys who are 225 pounds pretty easily compared to a guy who's 250 sitting there in the hole. Yeah. The same thing we've seen the last couple of years. Guys like Mahomes, Lamar, Russell Wilson, Josh Allen, guys who play out of structure really well, guys who improvise really well, have been wildly successful. But, has the NFL caught up? Has it shifting? When you're seeing guys like that start to struggle, but you're seeing rookies like Mac Jones come in who just play within the structure of their offense, go in and succeed. Is it that these guys are playing well, or that defenses are just these guys are playing poorly, or is that defenses are just adapting to what the offense has been giving them for 2 or 3 years?
I don't have an answer for that, but I like the train of thought there, because I've been saying recently, I think that running football is coming back. Now, I don't think it'll ever be what it was, pre-1995, pre-2000, because it was shifting up and we understood where it was going. But, I mean, Washington won its first Super Bowl in 1985, running the same power. It was like a power run to the left side of the line against the Dolphins. They ran the same play 14 times in a row. And they won because the Dolphins were built on small athletic players. And that's just how things were. It was pretty incredible to see. And I think that the NFL is starting to shift back towards that. Everybody got smaller and more athletic. Let's let the big boys run. Let's give the big boys a chance to succeed. So I don't know, man. You might be onto something. We also might just be completely wrong because we are an amateur podcast with, 80 listens a week or 50 listens a week, whatever it is. I'm happy with it because it's much higher than I thought.
Hey, we have a PFF subscription. We are elite.
And we are top 15 in Sri Lanka. We actually dropped in the rankings, which makes me very upset.
We got tongue-tied. That's okay. All right. We got In the next 2 minutes, we're going to quickly go over the rest of the games. First up, Dallas, New Orleans. Dallas wins 27-17. Taysom Hill injures his finger, not very accurate. Dallas just kind of stomps him for most of the game.
Next up, we have Arizona at Chicago. Arizona 33, Chicago 22. The annual call to fire Matt Nagy. Actually, weekly call to fire Matt Nagy. Get rid of him. Also, Arizona did this crazy thing with Kyler Murray where he hurt himself and they sat him for like 3 or 4 weeks. And all of a sudden, he comes back and he's healthy. And he has 4 touchdowns. Who would have thought? Crazy thing to do with your quarterback, Cleveland.
Next up, we have Indy at Houston. Indianapolis blew them out 31-0. Who would have thought? I'm not going to waste your time. Jonathan Taylor was awesome. What else is new?
Minnesota at Detroit. The Lions get their first win of the season. I wish we could have done a whole segment on this, but we can't. Detroit wins 29-27. As much as we make fun of Kirk Cousins on this podcast, he's not the problem. It's the whole organization, the whole team. None of them have the clutch factor.
Nope. All right, next up, we have the New York Giants at Miami. Miami takes it 20-9. Miami getting hot at the right time, looking like a potential wild card team. Also, I'm tired of the Tua slander. Tua is having an amazing season behind a historically bad offensive line. We are Tua stands in this podcast. Miami organization, get out of here. Respect your quarterback.
We got Philly at New York. Obviously, Philly blew out New York. It was pretty competitive there for a little bit. Gardner Minshew looked fun. He is not the answer, despite what Rob has to say.
Tampa Bay at Atlanta. Tampa Bay wins 30-17. Running is overrated. Just pass 50-plus times, stupid.
All right. And Jacksonville at LA Rams. Los Angeles 37, Jacksonville 7. What did you expect? Also, Trevor Lawrence or Blaine Gabbert? I guess we'll have to see.
It's a great question, honestly.
Awards for the worthy.
Wow.
Up next, we have Earth, Wind, and Fire, where we tell you Earth, who was the best ground game, Wind, who was the best passing game, and Fire, who was the best defense. Now, this first one might surprise you. The Earth Award this week will go to Derrick Henry. Now, you might be asking, why are we giving an award to someone who is out for the season and has been out of the season for 5 weeks?
Interesting. Yes, tell me more.
The reason we're going to do this is because Derrick Henry is still currently the number 2 rusher in the NFL, and he hasn't played since week 8. What? This man is so elite that he took 5 games off, and he's still number 2.
Some would say that he's like the George Kittle of running backs. You know, some being me in my previous segment.
We were going to give this award to Taysom Hill because he hurdled a bunch of people, got 9.2 yards a carry, whatever. But dude, Derrick Henry is so good that even when he's not playing, he's still the best. Zach, save me. Talk about Wind.
Yes, of course. So we have more of a recent performer, even though great nonetheless. Love Derrick Henry. The Tennessee Derrick Henrys miss him too. Wind Award this week goes to Tommy Football, Psycho Tom Brady.
Thomas Edward Patrick Brady Jr. to you, sir.
Yes, you're right. Honestly, if I ever meet him in person, I'm going to address him by his full name. And I'll be like, sir, you've earned the respect.
And then he'll kiss you on the mouth, just like he does his kids.
He will. He'll be like, I knew you were my long lost son.
All right,
Anyways.
PG podcast, boys. PG podcast.
Yeah.
Oh, that is PG, isn't it?
No, it is. I'm kidding. You got it.
Wait. So Tom threw the ball 51 times at 44 years old, which is like me throwing the ball 35 times at 29 years old with a bum right shoulder.
Over the course of a month.
It's not going to happen course of a month. Exactly. Yeah. I'm terrible at analogies, so just ignore those guys. So Tom Brady, 38 for 51, 368 yards, 5 touchdowns. Well, 4, but 1 to the Falcons defense. It was still great. Good joke, Rob. The Buccaneers don't care about running the ball. It's quite obvious. Only when Leonard Fournette is feeling hot one day. I guess that's what happens when you have a elite receiving of Tyler Johnson. That's the first name I'm mentioning. Absolutely. Because I'm a stan and a truther. Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Antonio Brown, OJ Howard, Rob Gronkowski, whatever. You better throw 51 times a game to those guys. Sergi, finish us off with Fire.
Yeah, before we get to that, I mean, do you guys remember like 4 or 5 years ago when Tom Brady was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna play until I'm 45," and we were like, "That's really funny, bro. How the hell are you gonna do that?"
He wasn't kidding. He's going to
now
throw
he-
51 times a game into his 50s. It's crazy.
And now he's 40.
Yeah, he is.
The crazy part is you remember Peyton at the end of his career. I mean, you're seeing it with Ben. You saw it with Phillip Rivers. The velocity was just not there anymore. And his arm is as good as it was 10, 15 years ago. It's
Dude,
insane.
Tom Brady. That's why people think that Tom Brady's up to some questionable stuff with TB12 or whatever it is with Alex Guerrero. You know, that's why Alex Guerrero has been investigated multiple times by the NFL for potential ungood things, whatever the word is for ungood. Bad.
Potential ungood things. And with that note, we're going to move to fire. And for fire, we have our defensive award goes to the Cincinnati. No, that's not Cincinnati. Wow.
Cincinnati Colts?
The Cincinnati Colts. I mixed up all my teams here. The Indianapolis Colts. The opposing team is going to score 0 points in a 60-minute period. You're probably going to earn the fire award. The Texans had 57 passing yards, 84 rushing yards. And Jonathan Taylor outgained the entire Texans offense. I mean, you knew this was going sideways when Tyrod Taylor tried to throw the ball away on the first drive and Kenny Moore managed to pick it off. This was not a good game for the Texans. Tyrod Taylor's hurt. Davis Mills is coming back. It's not looking pretty. Texans were 3 for 12 on third downs, 0 for 3 on fourth downs, and could only hold on to the ball for 18 minutes and 25 seconds. This was defensive domination. Darius Leonard, dark horse defensive player of the year candidate. He is having a phenomenal season that no one is talking about.
All right, for our other awards, we have the You Put On Your Big Boy Pants award. And this goes to the ankle chompers themselves, the Detroit Lions, for winning their first game. Earlier, we said I was sad that I didn't get to devote an entire segment to the Detroit Lions. I lied. Every single award in this award section will actually be given to the Detroit Lions or Detroit Lions player. That's not true, but I wish that was true. Congratulations to the Detroit Lions. I cried. I literally cried. I'm not joking. I actually cried when I watched it.
Did y'all see the video of Jared Goff's girlfriend finding out that he won the game? For reference, Jared Goff is dating a swimsuit model. So, kids, that's what $120 million a year will do for you. Become an NFL quarterback, and you too can date a swimsuit
Even
model.
for the Detroit Lions.
Even if you play for the Detroit Lions.
All right, Sergi, tell us about the next award.
Next up, we have the If Only Coach had put me in the fourth quarter, we would have won the Iron Bowl, no doubt, award, which goes to Gardner Minshew. The Minshew Mania is back. Gardner Minshew coming in for an injured Jalen Hurts and balling out for 244 yards and 2 touchdowns, and actually was Red Zone's NFL MVP this week. So good for Gardner Minshew. The stash is back. He had a really, really wholesome moment with his dad after the game. I guess wholesome for him is just like smashing their heads against one another and screaming, which is pretty much what that moment was. But that's exactly what you expect from our good boy Gardner Minshew. Love seeing him come in the game.
Next up, we have the How Do You Get Fired on Your Day Off award. And that goes to Joe Brady for getting canned during the Panthers bye week. Also, though, sneakily, this is good for Joe Brady. I think Joe Brady's going to go somewhere else and really thrive with a team that has a quarterback, but that's just my opinion. Rob, lead us.
Wait,
with the next one.
you're telling me Sam Darnold, Cam Newton, and Phillip Walker aren't all-star quarterbacks?
Actually, PJ Walker, to be precise.
They should trade for Joe Flacco, I think.
Oh, that's right. Oh, God, that's what they're
chance.
really missing in that locker room.
All right. Up next, we have the Galaxy Brain Award. I believe this is the first time I have ever done my sort of my favorite personal award, the Galaxy Brain Award, and had it not be ironic. This actually is truly Galaxy Brain. This goes to Chuck Clark and John Harbaugh for orchestrating yet another intentional penalty to put them into a situation where they can actually win the game. Chuck Clark is the go-to guy. I believe he's the guy with the green dot on his helmet, the one with communications upstairs. Every single time there's a really like blatantly obvious penalty that ends up resulting in a favorable situation for the Ravens, it is always Chuck Clark that does it. I was so impressed by this. It allowed the Ravens to get the ball back instead of the Steelers just burning the clock out and kicking a field goal and winning the game. The Ravens did actually score a touchdown on that drive and had a 2-point conversion to potentially win it. Galaxy Brain John Harbaugh, we'll talk about that more later, but God, he's such a high IQ coach. All right, you're up next, Sergi.
All right, next up, we have the Sad Spike Award, which goes to Ryan Griffin on the Jets for one of the saddest touchdown celebrations you'll ever see. It looked like it was done in slow-mo. He tried to do a Gronk spike, and it just bounced back up and hit him in the crotch. Granted, he is on the Jets, so that is about as expected. Also, doesn't Ryan Griffin have like a 4-year, $20-something million contract with the Jets?
I don't know, but good for him. I wish I could make $4 million. I wish I could make $5 million a year playing for a bad anything.
Being
honestly.
a completely irrelevant football player.
Yeah. If all I have to do is spike the ball and hit myself in the crotch one time, great. That's great by me.
Yeah. $5 million for that, I'll take it.
Absolutely. Last award, the Fourth and Miles Award. Obviously, I had to finish it off because my last name is Miles. This also happened by accident. Goes to Russell Wilson and the Seattle Seahawks for getting into a 2nd and 43 after a bad sack fumble. They still won the game, though. That's how you do.
Russell Wilson, I think, had negative 50 yards on his sacks against the 49ers this past game because
That's amazing.
Russell Wilson doesn't just take a sack. He takes extreme sacks. He likes to roll back 20 yards before he gets taken back.
Absolutely.
The old
100%.
first and goal safety.
Ravens update.
For the Ravens update, this week probably won't be as positive as we usually are. I'll try to start off on a little bit of a positive note, though. The Ravens defense has been insane over the past 4 games, given all of the injuries, given the IR. I think 20 points is the most points that they have allowed in the last 4 weeks, and that's including a week where Lamar threw 4 interceptions. That is really impressive. When your entire defensive back core is on IR, like that's just impressive. The offense, however, has not scored more than 20 points in the last 4 games either. Now that's a problem. Our offense needs to be covering for our severely injured defense, not vice versa. I don't know really what's wrong. Lamar has been playing really, really terrible football. Now, Sergi's going to break that down and go in a little bit more in depth in that later, but I cannot tell if it's an issue of Greg Roman's lack of sort of offensive ingenuity, if it's a restriction of maybe Lamar's football IQ. But when I look at our team, I don't see any sort of trump cards in our playbook. I feel like teams usually have that one play or those 2 plays that they pull out, those special plays that make you go, wow, that's a new one. Something that's innovative that can catch defenses off guard. Your 2-point conversion play that you pull out, your hat trick. I don't feel like we have that. And that's something we need right now. Our offense is not rolling right now. It looks really bad. Lamar Jackson is just forcing the ball to Mark Andrews over and over and over again. The wide receivers are getting upset that they're not getting targets. It's not a great situation. This one felt really bad, and I'm not talking about losing. Losing was one thing. Losing to Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh, that feels bad. But what really upsets me is that we lost Marlon Humphrey, possibly, maybe even likely, for the year. That is a blow that I don't know that we can withstand. We are not a Super Bowl contender. I don't think we were, and I think we had said that recently. But when you get to the playoffs, whatever happens, happens. Right now, I'm not sure that we're going to make it to the playoffs. We have 8 wins. I think we're going to need at least 10 to make the playoffs. Our remaining schedule, Browns, Steelers, Packers, Rams, Bengals. 3 of those outright, I believe we're going to lose. We need to beat the Browns. We need to beat the Steelers. Is that going to be enough? Maybe. In a 17-game season? Maybe. I don't feel good about it. Sergi, where are you at?
2 things. One, unfortunately, the news that came out today, Marlon Humphrey has a torn pec. He is done for the year. So we are down to our 3rd string corner as a number 1 corner. And number 2, we have a shot to beat the Rams because I am going to be attending the Ravens-Rams game.
Thank
and if
God.
need be,
Oh,
I will
thank God.
leave in the 4th quarter. so we can go and win the game.
When we're down
per
24
tradition.
points, you'll leave in the fourth quarter?
When we're down
Okay.
24 points, I will leave in the fourth quarter, and somehow OBJ is going to fumble the ball for 3 fumble returns. I promise. I promise it's going to happen. To quote John Harbaugh in the post-game interview about when they asked him why we went for 2 instead of kicking the field goal, he said, we were pretty much out of corners. And yeah, we are. I mean, the injuries have been our Achilles heel this entire season. We had no one left. And the point was, if we had gone to overtime, kicked the field goal, if Pittsburgh got the ball back, there was absolutely no way that we could have stopped them. Anthony Everett could not cover Deontay Johnson. He was holding him. He was constantly getting penalties, or Deontay Johnson was getting wide open. We have no one who could cover the Pittsburgh receivers. And towards the end of the game, you could see that Najee Harris was starting to punish our defense. He was starting to run for 7-8 yards a clip, everyone. And you know what? Our run defense is great, but you can only contain a 6'2", 230-pound running back for so long who hits like a sledgehammer. I would like to submit a rule change to the NFL. I think that you should be able to kick from 50 yards plus for a 2-point conversion. I don't think that this will benefit the Ravens disproportionately. There's no way that this could be used to our advantage, but I think it'll make the game overall better. Look, this was a classic Ravens Steelers matchup. I mean, it was a defensive, gross slugfest. That is what every Ravens Steelers game comes down to. Every offense just looks horrible, and the defense and the run game just hit each other over and over and over again until someone knocks someone's teeth out. That's part of the reason it's such a great rivalry. You know, you just get to see hard-nosed classic football. That's what it is every year, and I expect nothing less. We were 2 inches from winning the game. We like. The 2-point conversion that was called up, that was a great play. In fact, Mark Andrews was wide open. Lamar just happened to have TJ Watt unblocked jumping in his face, and he managed to just overthrow Andrews by a little bit. Andrews almost caught the ball too. We've seen him catch those batted passes to himself like 5 or 6 times just this year. So, you know, I think that Harbaugh made the right call going for 2 at the end of the game. I think that, you know, it was as close as it always gets. It's what it's always going to be with the Steelers. I think as long as Mike Tomlin is there, you know, it was a classic Ravens Steelers game. I don't think that we could have said anything else about it. And you know what? I will give the Steelers credit where it is due. I think their defense really stepped up, and I think they contained Lamar really, really well throughout this whole game. He really did not get a lot of opportunities. So it was a good game to watch. I know Rob said I was going to touch on Lamar, and I mean, here we are. Lamar is regressing. And that is what's really, really frustrated me watching him throughout the year. At the start of the year, one thing that I really, really loved is that his mechanics had improved. You know, he was setting his feet when he was throwing. His toes were pointed at his target. His release was nice and quick. It was a more traditional football release. And as you see the season go, you know, and run its course, we have just seen it regress and regress and regress even more. The late game heroics are turning into hero ball. You know, Lamar Jackson all of a sudden is showing us shades of Zach Wilson. Or even shades of Patrick Mahomes, for what you want to say. It's the guy that just believes that he can make every single throw. And that's great, because you know what? I want my quarterback to believe that he can make every pass. But at the same time, when your quarterback believes that his arm is superior to everything else in the field, in the National Football League, your quarterback is going to turn the ball over. And just for reference, you know, of course the O-line injuries aren't helping, but so ever since week 7 in Cincy, it really has been all downhill. So his big time throw rate has been declining. His turnover worthy plays are up. I mean, he had one of the worst, most egregious interceptions in this game. It was his only pick, but it was that throw to Minkah Fitzpatrick. He had no business throwing that ball, but he just threw it off his back foot and assumed that Mark Andrews would be there to make the play. But he overthrew him by 5 yards. And so, of course, Minkah got the ball. Lamar, in terms of turnover-worthy plays, he had 8 turnover-worthy plays in the first 7 weeks of the season. He has had 10 turnover-worthy plays in the last 4 games. What's crazy about that, though, is that he is averaging the largest amount of time to throw in the NFL. He's averaging over 3 seconds time to throw in the NFL. The average is like 2.8. And those 0.25 seconds, that makes all the difference when you're trying to open up windows or sling the ball down the field. What's crazy though is that Lamar's worst grading in the NFL, where he's throwing the most interceptions, where he's throwing the most incompletions, is actually when he has the most time to throw. When he's under pressure, Lamar is averaging 3.81 seconds in the pocket before he lets the ball go. Coincidentally, that's when he has his worst grading. That's where he has his worst statistics. Lamar functions well in a structured offense. He functions well when you can get the ball out quickly. He functions well when he can make his quick reads. But when you want him to run around, when you want him to try and make plays downfield, when you want to try and turn him into Patrick Mahomes or Russell Wilson, I don't know if he can do it. And that's never been the player that Lamar has been. And the data showing it. I mean, PFF has their passing grades. And for reference, a high 80, a 90 is a really, really good passing grade for PFF. That means you're efficient. You're getting the ball downfield. You're not turning the ball over. Lamar's best grade of the season was against Indianapolis. It was a 90.7. Since then, since week 7 at Cincy, 61, 51.2, 35.3, 35.5. It's just getting worse. It's rough. I don't know what else to say. I don't know what really the solution is, because offensive line can't hold up blocks. He has to run out of the pocket. He has to try to make these plays out of structure. I mean, Devontae Freeman's looking okay, but he's still averaging under 3 yards a carry. Like, we're relying so much on our quarterback running around and making hero ball plays. And here's the result. Rob and I touched on it. I am worried for the end of the season. I think our defense is kind of an eviscerated husk of itself right now. There's just not a lot of people across our offense and defense. We have 11 players on IR right now, and I'm talking starters, just starters on IR. That's half your starting lineup. I think that the Ravens could squeeze into a playoff spot. I think that we, have a shot there, but it's a first round exit. And at this point, I'm of the mindset of maybe we just prep for next year. I don't know, Rob, what else you got?
Yeah, I mean, the fact that we're even 8-4 right now is crazy. It's a testament to how good Harbaugh is as a coach and his coaching just talent in general. This is the coach who won a Super Bowl on an intentional safety. He's just a good coach. We're winning games on that. We're not a good team. First round exit most likely, but it is what it is.
Washington football team, I guess, update.
All right, guys, welcome to your formerly favorite angry, I guess you could say, segment of the podcast, the Washington football update. So here's the headline before a big action. I might be turning around on Taylor Heineke. Dun, dun, dun.
What?
Yeah, dude. Why? For real?
What?
It's crazy. What? Yeah, man. No, I don't know what to say, guys. I mean, I'm going to try and refrain from delving into the same thing that I've said so many times, which is he throws way too high and way too behind any wide receiver or tight end or running back or any player, even defenders. He throws too high and too behind on half the time, which is probably a good thing. All jokes aside, though, man, yeah, Taylor, he's got heart. I finally found myself being like sort of not captivated, but like kind of in awe of what it was that he was doing on the field. I mean, he was getting repeatedly whacked, man. Like he was getting destroyed. And every time he got hit, I was like, oh, I don't think he's getting up from that. The worst hit that I've seen on Taylor Heineke probably this year was the Max Crosby 15-yard roughing the passer penalty, where Max Crosby, a massive human being, going against Taylor Heineke, a kind of a whittle guy, just not as whittle as Kai were. You know what I mean? He's like a smaller dude. Crosby comes through, breaks through the line, gets both hands on Taylor, lifts all of his weight, and crunches Taylor into the ground. And when he did that, Taylor was also on his side. So all I imagined in my head was like, oh, that's a double collarbone break. I've never heard of that, but he broke both of his collarbones right now because that's the logical explanation about what just happened. I didn't think Taylor was going to get up from that. I didn't think he'd be available for the rest of the game or for the next couple of weeks. But the penalty was announced, and he gets up, hands the ball off the next play. Then he gets sacked again right after that play. It's crazy to think that this is a dude who gets hit more than a lot of quarterbacks, and he keeps getting up. And I respect that the most. Now, I don't really think he's a very good quarterback. Like I said, I'm not going to harp on that. I'm not going to delve into it too much. You know, his touchdown to Logan Thomas was a thing of beauty because of Logan Thomas making a beautiful catch. Taylor Heineke threw the ball 10 feet above Logan Thomas. Logan Thomas had to literally jump out of this stadium to come down with that ball. Not, literally, like figuratively speaking, of course, when I say literally. But it's just crazy to think about what it is that this kid can bring to the team. He elevates the guys around him, which is a rare thing. Not a lot of people do that. The best quarterbacks tend to do that. There's this tweet that my buddy Kevin tagged me in, who I think is mad at me right now because I'm so anti-Washington football. But he tagged me in it, and I'm serious, man. I don't think Kevin's happy with me. But he had like attached me to this tweet, or whatever, added me in this tweet where it said every quarterback throws interceptions. Not every quarterback leads a game-winning drive after doing it, because that's what Taylor Heineke does, man. That's what he's been able to do, and it's been really impressive, like the mentality and the aura that he brings to this team. But like I said, I don't really believe him as a quarterback. I think I'd be willing to give him time, though. But anyways, the Washington football team's not just about Taylor Heineke and my lessening of disdain for him. It's about the whole team. Logan Thomas suffered a nasty knee injury, not on a Taylor Heineke reception. A Yannick Ngakoue dirty play that was allowed by the NFL because he was in the tight end box. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Anybody diving for people's knees should be not okay, especially when they're blocking. And Logan Thomas initially was believed to have had a torn ACL and MCL. Mm-hmm. Turns out didn't have a torn ACL. He is, yeah. So he failed the ACL test with the physical trainers, but ended up actually not having a torn ACL, at least off of initial MRIs. Obviously, things can still go south. They said that they need to do more tests, but the goal here is that he doesn't need to get a surgery where he has to rehab for a year for it.
Yeah, so I'm rooting for that guy. I mean, it's transitioned from a 4th-round quarterback to a tight end, and a good tight end in the NFL. I just want to see him stay on the field and be healthy.
Yeah, me too, man. I mean, he had already missed 6 games this year because of that hamstring, and then comes back for a game and a half, and now is out for probably realistically the rest of the year. Maybe comes back in playoffs. This isn't going to be just about Washington today. This is also going to be about the Raiders a little bit, just so I can talk about the game. Washington beat the Raiders 17-15. They won on a last-minute field goal by I don't even remember the kickers. His name's Brian something. I don't know his last name. I think it's Johnson. I think it's Brian Johnson. Jonathan Allen, who is his teammate, didn't know his name. That's the best quote that came out of this whole thing.
They were like, Mike Blewett again.
No, it's Chris Blewett. It was Chris Blewett. No, it's not Chris Blewett or Joey Sly. I think it's Brian Johnson. I still don't know, and I don't have enough time to look it up because we're running out of time on the Zoom. But Jonathan Allen was quoted saying, "Heck yeah, I was nervous," with a different word. He said, "Heck yeah, I was nervous." He was like, "I didn't even know the guy's name." So I was just like, all right, so his teammate didn't know his name. Obviously, most of us won't know his name. But the Raiders lost on that last-minute field goal kick. The Raiders looked bad. They looked bad. Their defensive line didn't get a ton of like numbers. I mean, they still had 5 tackles for loss, so they had obviously enough penetration. But Washington was able to continue to perform well in spite of that. Bryan Edwards dropped a deep pass. Zay Jones dropped a deep pass. Deshaun Jackson dropped at least a 30-yard gain. So these guys really, who could have actually won the game for the Raiders, lost the game for the Raiders. And what's crazy is that Derek Carr has been leading the most prolific downfield passing attack this year. Not prolific ever, obviously, but this year. And they held him to 253 yards, but it wasn't because the defense was that great. The defense for Washington was good. It was good. They got interior pressure. They did not get any sort of exterior pressure. They really are struggling on the exterior without Montez Sweat and Chase Young. Good news is they might get Sweat back in the next 2 weeks. We'll see. But for the most part, it was just kind of an ugly game all around. But Washington was just able to out-cute the Raiders ugly, if that makes sense. It wasn't the worst of both options, Unfortunately, Kenyon Drake broke his ankle for the Raiders, so he had 1 carry for 1 broken ankle. That's his official statistic. And then Josh Jacobs was out for multiple series and then came back, then out for multiple series. So obviously there's something going on with the Raiders and their injuries like there is with every other franchise in the NFL right now. Kind of to give you guys a summation though, man, honestly, I'm going to be straight with you guys. I'm not that angry at this team. I still don't think we're going to win anything. I think if we go to the playoffs, we lose round 1. I think that's just how it's going to be. But right now we're the 6th seed. If we continue to win, we'll probably stay in that 6th seed. Maybe go down to the 7th seed if we lose a game here or there. And unless we lose the rest of our games, we're probably going to the playoffs, which is a weird thing to feel because I'll be excited for the Dallas game this week. I'll be excited for the December football. And shout out to all my Washington fan friends, James Sears, Dan Wright, Kevin Gamble, Steve Pusis, all you guys who continue. My dad, he doesn't listen to the podcast though, which is kind of rude. But all these guys who listen to the podcast or have listened to the podcast at some juncture and deal with me just being this angry, grouchy, I don't know, grunchy. That's a new word, a grunchy figure. Punkage, man. Punkage listens too. So thank you guys for listening and dealing with this. Hopefully our team's getting it together, man. They might be getting it together. But ultimately, I want you guys to be able to rub it in my face and say, hey, we told you we were right. We told you the team was good, instead of me being able to say to you guys, hey, I told you the team sucked. I want to be wrong. That is my goal every single week, to come on here, get mad, and have somebody say, Zach, how stupid did you look on your podcast? And I'll say, you can't see me, so I didn't look stupid at all.
The future is now.
The future is now.
Up next, we have The Future Is Now. In this segment, we look into our crystal ball and tell you, next week in Week 14, which Minnesota-based NFL football team will choke away a win. Up first, we have Pittsburgh at Minnesota. This is the Minnesota team that will choke away a win. I think this is a primetime game. We're talking about Kirk Cousins in a primetime game. We're talking about Pittsburgh in a primetime game. It's not going to be Minnesota. Pittsburgh wins.
Next up, we have Atlanta at Carolina. Both of these teams are bad, man. Do I have to have an opinion? I do. I need to root for Chuba Hubbard to get a bunch of fantasy points. That way I can win. So I guess I'm going to choose Atlanta because everything I choose and root for ends up dying.
I trade you Cordero Patterson in Dynasty, and this is how you do me, Zachary?
This is, yeah, man. Well, because in that league, it's different. But
Desperate
I'm
times,
going to
man.
Atlanta.
Desperate times.
I'm going to Atlanta. That way Chuba goes off. I'm sorry. I gotta hedge my bets.
All right. Next up, we have Baltimore at Cleveland. I think that I've picked Cleveland last time. I am going to pick Cleveland this time. Cleveland has had a bye week to prep against Baltimore. They are playing us back-to-back times. I don't know what the data is. I don't know what the stats are, but I cannot imagine teams' records are really, really great against teams that they play back-to-back. And also, not to mention, our number one corner is done for the year, and we let 100 yards to Jarvis Landry with our number one corner last time. It's going to be a get-right game for Cleveland, and unfortunately, I think it's going to be against Baltimore.
Up next, Dallas at Washington. Well. I am struggling with this one. I'm actually struggling. I'm not even trolling you right now, Zach. I'm actually struggling with this one.
No, I believe it. It's a tough game.
I think the Cowboys will win. Washington has, I guess you call it home field advantage. I don't know if Landover really counts as home field advantage.
No,
but
dude, that's not. It's not.
Yeah. But
lower bowl is always the other
Dallas
team's fans.
still has to travel. I think things are going to get spicy here. I think the Cowboys will win, but this game will get spicy.
Dak Prescott sucks. Washington's going to win. Woo!
I hope you're right, but I'm kind of leaning where Rob's leaning right now. Next up, we have Jacksonville at Tennessee. I mean, Tennessee gets Julio back. He was just activated from IR today. I don't know if that matters. I don't know if Julio's even any good anymore. He's been hurt all year and he's old.
Julio was on Tennessee.
Yeah.
Because he has not done anything.
No, he's not done anything and he hasn't played. Once again, man, I'm drawing all the bad teams versus the bad teams, but I guess I'm going to have to go Tennessee because I think the Jags are the worst team of football other than the Texans. And I think the Jags, did they beat Tennessee before? Is the Jets?
But they beat the Bills.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Jags
No,
beat the Bills.
they're going to lose to the Jags. They lost to the Jets and Houston. They're going to lose to the Jags. Is
this
Jags.
your upset pick? You're going upset
This
pick?
is my upset pick. I'm going Jags. Trevor Lawrence, a.k.a. Blaine Gabbert, goes off. First game of the year.
Awesome.
All right, next up we have the Las Vegas Raiders at the Kansas City Chiefs. Chiefs. My goodness. Look, are the Raiders going to play a cover 2 shell? No, they're going to play a single high safety like they always do. Is Jonathan Abram going to give up 150 yards receiving? Yes, because that's what Jonathan Abram does. The Chiefs are going to keep rolling. They're going to take it. And all of a sudden, the Chiefs, who were questioning at the start of the season, are going to be in line for the number 1 seed in the AFC. Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, can you please stop for just a minute, please?
New Orleans Saints at New York Jets. The Saints are reeling. I don't think they're reeling badly enough to lose to the Jets. The Saints run a gimmick-based offense with Taysom Hill. I think that this is not something you're going to get away with against the Cowboys, but you might get away with against the Jets. I think the Saints defense is going to dominate. Saints win.
Next up, I have Seattle at Houston. And man, once again, another one of these awful games. Seahawks.
It's by design.
It is. It's gotta be. It's gotta be, man. Just throw me off. The Seahawks, they surprised this week, is what I'd say. But the 49ers also were fine. Like they should have won that game. Like you said earlier, Serge, it was just 2 lucky plays. So I mean, I'm gonna go Seattle because as I said in my last prediction, Jacksonville and Houston are the 2 worst football teams in football. Obviously not the 2 worst football teams in soccer or basketball, just the 2 worst football teams in football.
Very eloquently put. All right, next up we have Detroit at Denver. I mean, look, the Detroit Lions have some serious momentum. I would hope that Denver understands that you should give the ball to Javonte Williams. Stop giving it to Melvin Gordon. I think if Javonte Williams gets 25 carries in this game,
200
Denver's
yards.
going to win.
200 yards.
200 yards.
200.
Yeah, exactly. If Javonte Williams gets under 25 carries, then Jared Goff's swimsuit model girlfriend is going to have to take a break for another one of her shoots to be astounded that her boyfriend's team won another game.
Next, we have Giants at Chargers. We already gave you the playbook on how teams beat the Chargers. I think Saquon Barkley is washed. Hot take, if that even is hot take. I would say moderately cool take at this point. Saquon Barkley is washed. I don't think the Giants can beat the Chargers. Chargers win.
We were having a discussion earlier this week. Like, Saquon Barkley is an amazing athlete, but he's never going to live up to the number 2 overall pick in the draft. That's why you don't pick a running back that high. Like, you just don't do that in today's NFL. It sucks. When's the last time he had a 100-yard game? 2 years ago? 3 years ago? It's
2 years ago.
Yeah.
College.
Okay.
Next up, I mean, who are they going to draft instead? Was Sam Darnold? I'm pretty sure Sam Darnold went 3rd, so they still would have sucked regardless of who they got.
Lose.
Didn't Quentin Nelson go in that draft?
I don't remember.
Yeah.
My capacity is gone. Buffalo at Tampa Bay. I'm going to guess that Tom beats Buffalo after all those years of beating Buffalo because he harvested so many souls, man. He does witchcraft with football. So I'm going to go Tampa Bay over Buffalo.
Next up, we have San Francisco at Cincinnati. This is a tough one. I really did not know where to go with this. Ultimately, I think it's going to come down to Cincinnati's offensive line versus the San Francisco defensive line. And I just do not think that the Cincinnati O-line has the capacity to have people that can take Nick Bosa and Eric Armstead. I think San Francisco is going to win. And also, Zach, yes, that was the draft with Quentin Nelson. Instead of Saquon Barkley, they could have drafted Denzel Ward or Quentin Nelson or Josh Allen. So take your freaking pick.
Okay, fair enough.
Fact check by Bananas.
This is, I believe, the Sunday night football game. Chicago at Green Bay. Aaron, I own you. Rodgers, with his broken toe, will beat Green Bay. That fun fact, that is actually what Aaron Rodgers sounds like now in his old age.
Hey, Rob, could you do me a favor and just never ever do that ever again?
You said you want me to clip the soundbite and send it to you so you can use it.
Oh,
okay.
no.
You sounded like the Green Goblin. All right, I'll go ahead and I'll finish this up, guys. We have LA Rams at Arizona. Arizona's at home. Kyler Murray is healthy and probably the most efficient and overall maybe the best quarterback in football right now, just this season at least. And I get it. The Rams blew out the Jags, but it's the Jags. I'm going Arizona.
Fishing for fantasy.
Welcome to Fishing for Fantasy. This is the part of the podcast where we try and give you ways to win your fantasy league and ultimately you lose it. But here's the thing. If you need our help at this point in the season, you're probably cooked. So go ahead and follow our advice because we can't make it worse. I don't know what to tell you guys. I mean, if somebody dropped Julio or somebody dropped Calvin Ridley, maybe they're worth a speculative ad, like if you're competing for a championship. But if you're not winning, there's no reason for you to listen to this segment anyways. Just turn off the podcast. It's over for you. I mean, finish it because we appreciate it.
Skip to the socials. Yeah.
But exactly. Just go to the socials part. Like skip like 5 minutes from now. Anyways, Rob, go ahead. Start us off with your first recommendation.
Okay, quarterback, we're bouncing back to Taysom Hill. He is still only owned in about a third of leagues. Despite throwing like 4 interceptions or something crazy like that last week, he still put up over 20 points, and that's because rushing quarterbacks are basically cheating. He had a 100-yard rushing game. So would you like a running back who also throws the ball and sits in the quarterback position? I would. Actual running backs.
We have running back for the Philadelphia Eagles, Kenny G. The new Kenny G. Because Kenny Galladay, who is that? Kenneth Gainwell owned 11.2% of weeks. He had 17 points this week. And Miles, it's because Miles Sanders got banged up. You know what? So is Jalen Hurts. He still has an ankle injury. I can't, if the guy's ankle's so bad that he couldn't play this week, I don't foresee a running quarterback coming back and running phenomenally the following week. He's worth a speculative ad just to stash on your bench, monitor Miles Sanders' health throughout the week. And if Miles Sanders doesn't start, Kenny G seems like it'd be a good go.
Next up, we have Amon-Ra St. Brown, the savior of Detroit, Michigan. He made it so that team didn't go winless. And honestly, guys, that's the only reason you should pick him up. Just kidding. He also wants to get some more playing time, and obviously Dan Campbell seems to be playing him more. His snaps are going up. He also saw 12 targets this past week. So could be a volume-based ad. Could be a fun ad, too, just to know you have the savior of Detroit on your roster, baby. That's history. Add Amon-Ra St. Brown, the sun god.
My name is Sergio Feldman. I wish my name was Amon-Ra St. Brown. That sounds so much cooler.
That is a super cool name.
Yeah,
All right.
I know.
You guys have no complaints. My name is Zach Miles. All right? I have 2 first names. I have 3 first names if you include my middle name. So,
Rob, do you have to defend my Gerald Everett?
I do.
Fantasy.
I do. I have drawn the short straw, and this week I have to cover Gerald Everett. He is owned in 7.4% of leagues. Okay, look, guys, I get it, right? I get it. You're mad right now. You're really mad because you're like, all right, I just need like 5 points out of my tight end and I'm good. And we gave you negative 1.3. I know that makes you sad, but like, just hear me out, okay? Hear me out. Red zone targets, yeah. So this guy gets a lot of red zone targets. He gets touchdowns. He's had a lot of touchdowns in the past. This game, did he happen to single-handedly cause 3 turnovers and almost cost them the entire game? Yeah, of course he did. But that doesn't matter, okay? Because he also could have just as easily had 3 touchdowns in this game, which, quick maths, according to our researcher team, that is 18 points. So You got unlucky this week. This guy's consistently produced over the past couple weeks. He likely will produce in future weeks, assuming he isn't just permanently in the doghouse for ruining that game. He's still a good pickup. He still catches passes. Russell Wilson throws to this guy in the end zone. Pick up Gerald Everett. Just, if you get to a point where you just need to not get negative points, just move him down to your bench. But other than that, start him.
All right, and last up for defense this week, we have the Green Bay Packers against the Chicago Bears. Pick up Green Bay's defense and special teams. Why? Because they're playing against Matt Nagy. Do I need to explain it any further? The offensive genius that is Matt Nagy and Andy Dalton. Oh, I'm very, very frightened. Just pick them up. Andy Dalton's going to throw like 4 more interceptions. Come on, guys.
All right, guys. And on that note, if you didn't need fantasy help, you skipped to the right portion of the podcast. Time for socials. Go ahead, follow us on Twitter and TikTok. And, we stopped putting up YouTube videos. Oh, no, we didn't. We still have YouTube videos up of the audio only. So you could do that or listen via Spotify, Apple Music. Hit that like, subscribe, download, save. I'll even come give you a hug. I don't care. I'll put you on my fantasy wish list friends group where you get 15% off of all fantasy advice services that I don't talk about on the podcast. You know what? That's not a bad idea. Maybe that's the way to make some money next year. Yeah.
I like how quickly he pivoted away from that hug where he was like, that might not be okay.
Yeah, I will say we are still not on Pandora. Pandora is our mortal enemy. We strongly
and they're
encourage...
based out of Baltimore. It doesn't make any sense.
It's just they make us sad. Don't give them your money.
Are you thinking Pandora Jewelers instead of Pandora Radio? That's based out of Baltimore.
I might be. I don't know, guys. I just see Pandora.
Are you thinking
like,
Panda
wow.
Express, the Chinese food buffet place?
You got me. That's my favorite place to go. I love it. If that's based out of Baltimore, I know why I get sick when I eat it sometimes.
It's definitely not. It's definitely not. Anyway. Thank you guys for listening. This is the part of the podcast where we attempt to do our unrehearsed outro and botch it like 50% of the times. Kick it off, Zach.
Thank you for listening. My name is Zach Miles.
I'm Rob Sahutsky.
I'm Sergio Feldman, and thank you for listening to Babble the Beltway.
Oh my God, we got it that time. Thank you.